anything you can do to get kids interested. I have guest speakers in. And I always try to present both sides so the kids get to hear both points of views. And our representatives, they will come in and talk, and then my principal and the administration, they're very supportive. Take your kids and go to the Capitol, see what's going on at the legislature and everything. So I think those kind of things help.
The thing I start every class off with is a quote of the day. So I will pick a random quote, or I'll Google it or find it on Twitter or something, and then my class will discuss it. And so what it does for my class is it allows them to open up and talk and create a family environment where you can disagree, you can share your opinion and feel comfortable and safe. And so then I really feel like that will allow us to get into difficult issues and have a difficult conversation in a really mature way.
For me, I usually encourage my students to take notes, and there's difference for everybody on how their note-taking strategy and whether they count it as notes. But I think note-taking and teaching kids how to take notes is extremely important, because they're not going to remember everything and what good note-taking actually looks like.
I use a lot of questions in my classroom. I ask questions to get the kids in the right direction. When they ask me a question, I try to back them up by asking them questions. I don't get it. Well, you have to get part of it. What do you get? What do you know? How can we get you to the right level?
Do these simulated congressional hearings through the We the People program is a fantastic way to get them to buy in to how government works, and to allow them to use their firsthand expertise to do this, and really just trying to make things relevant to them using local issues.
I think that best practice for me as a teacher is to be a facilitator, not someone that just stands and delivers, and they have to try to pick and choose what it is to write down or to study. Even in assessment, formative assessment, building to summative assessment, and best practice is they need to know, what are you going to be assessed on? Because just being able to take a test is not the end all, but many times in the world of education, that's how we're going to be evaluated.
With vocabulary, we look at the origins of the word. So all year long throughout in U.S. studies, we look at Greek and Latin roots. And we have 20 of them or so a week, and we look at different words. I encourage them to look up words and find their origin, because if they can find that origin, then they become more familiar with what that word might mean, and using context clues, using the language to figure out the vocabulary.
21st century skills, one of them is collaboration, that kids are supposed to know. And so in working together in a unit, that helps foster that.
I like to bring in multiple sources for my classes, and I'll have one current event written by one newspaper and then from another, and we'll just look at how differently it was reported through the different lenses. A great way to do that is through world politics, because we definitely don't report the news as some of the other countries do, and they really see the difference where it's not all about personal opinion as opposed to really just listening to the facts and putting the facts out there.
To kind of prepare them, getting them used to talking. This class, if this is a student who is awesome and on paper is 4 point whatever GPA, but if they're too shy to raise their hand, this course might not be fit for them. Half of it is that kind of studious aspect and knowing how to read well, knowing how to write well. But the other half is almost the performance aspect. To be able to sit down, look someone who's much older than you in the eye, who's much more intimidating, much more kind of established than you are, and for them to ask you any question they want about the Constitution, and you need to be able to kind of throw it back at them. So how to prepare for that is something I not only challenge, but best practices, I give them tons of oral quizzes. If Tuesday was test day, over Unit 1, Wednesday was Unit 1 oral quiz. Okay, you guys just tested over this, clear your desk of everything. I'm just going to cold call you and ask you any question that I want to ask, and you should give me something based on what you tested over yesterday. So I asked my students what helped the most for the competition, and a lot of them said that.
There was one that we used, the fishbowl strategy, that I think might address some of those high-need students their concerns or reviewing for things or getting some of those people to participate who might otherwise be reluctant?
Right now, I'm part of the C3 movement, so College Career and Civic Life through the National Council of the Social Studies. So creating an inquiry question. So for example, my AP kids, at the end of their exam, I had all this free time. I said, I want you guys to identify an inquiry question, anything about government that we've covered. So at this time, they've done vocabulary, they understand content. We're going to dig deeper, we're going to look at sources, and also we're going to tie it civic action piece. So they had questions such as, is building a wall possible? So we had to look at, all those things, the power of the president, funding. What is the effect of social media on the election? So what is social media? Who looks at social media? What are the demographics? So they actually got to make sense of using documents, data, polling, and they got it.
One thing I've noticed is that, if people know that you care about them first, then they're going to be more receptive to what you're saying. So building that good rapport and the relationship, the good bantering back and forth is always huge in my class,
I found that current events with, news articles or something that's really, really fresh, just this happened just yesterday, or whatever that makes it relative to them, was always kind of like my grabber. And then I could use that area or that current event to tie to what happened in history to make them more interested and feel that relevancy, to them, rather than just kind of starting from out of nowhere and them not caring because they don't feel that it's part of who they are or what's important to them.
A lot of my students will be overwhelmed with reading just 4 pages of a document. So instead, we break it down in chunks. I've had my students read the Federalist Papers. They're very challenging, but I've adapted them and I've given them paragraphs. So one group will do one paragraph, the other will do another, and then we just jigsaw it out so they don't feel overwhelmed. And then they summarize all together and they feel like they really learned something, because without it, trying to do it by themselves, oh my gosh, that's really bad. It doesn't work. But if they feel like they're working together and they're learning to summarize and understand this complex information as a group, I feel like they're more empowered to feel like they know something individually as well.
I'd say definitely know your content. If you don't know what you're talking about, people figure that out very, very quickly. They can always spot a faker. And I guess when it comes to your knowledge, it's perfectly acceptable to say, I don't know. It's like they will respect that vastly more, where they understand you don't get everything right all the time. You're not the font of all information, but you can help them find out. It's like, if I don't know, it's okay for you not to know. Let's go figure out what it is together.
So for 8th grade students, it's hard for them to understand sometimes the relevance of history on them at the current state. But one of the things that I try to do is to tell them, no matter who they are, whether they are a citizen of the United States, whether they're not a citizen of the United States, whatever their plan is, they are a participant within the community. So they have a voice within not only our government, but also in the process.